A clinically dead patient at a Canadian intensive care unit showed brain activity for 10 minutes and 38 seconds after they were pronounced dead. After further studies, researchers discovered the patient was experiencing the same brain activity that occurs when a human's in deep sleep. This inspired them to study more brain activity the moment after death occurs. They discovered that each person experiences death differently. Researchers still don't have a clue as to what this all means, but they hope it will lead to the advancement of human knowledge on what happens after a person dies.
Alright, so in today's video I'm going to be looking at this article found on Science Alert. Brain activity has been recorded as much as 10 minutes after death. This was in 2018. Now, all this research in this article is related to the line of research and articles that I've been featuring in this channel, having to do with last year's. This is 2022. There was an article and a research going all over the place. I literally saw this article in Russian sites, in news media sites, everywhere about the first EEG on a dying human brain. It seems saying that this was the first time happening. I'm gonna link that somewhere in the screen. I made a video about it. People are wondering if this is the reason why people are having near-death experiences, and that is something that I'm going to be speaking about also in this video. And this is the whole thing. This is why I'm doing this as well. We're trying to figure out what is the process of death. We don't know exactly what the process is of death is. We don't know when death actually happens. We don't know. We're starting to learn about the physiological parts of it. In the previous video, I featured a video speaking about genes and how some genes become some quote-unquote developmental genes become active after death. These are the genes which create an embryo. So the fact that prenatal genes and processes that as soon as the being is born are inactive until the time of death tells us about an interconnection between the process of birth and the process of death. And I tied all of that into metempsychosis and the process of transmigration of the soul. I'm gonna link the video somewhere on the screen. So all of this has to do with it. As I said, this is part of my first chapter of my next book. I don't even know if it's going to be a chapter. Maybe the whole book is going to be about this, because there is just so much research and it's all tying up with delta brainwaves and the process of death and what happens on a, let's say, I'm going to call it on an anecdotal, on the realm of near-death experiences and the stories and the metaphysical, and there is a physiological component of it that a lot of people are not looking into, but it is present here. So I'm trying to tie, I'm gonna be calling this book The Science Behind Meaning, or something dealing with the science of death, because there is a physiological aspect to the moment of death, and it seems to be tying up with the transcendental experience, with the metaphysical experience, and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna be delving into that in this video. All the links, as always, are gonna be below. This is going on ongoing research because there is research attached to it. And a quick update, I've been a little bit slow on posting certain things. I've been getting a little bit busy in real life, positive things, and moving forward with my career, with my life, outside of this project, the Rational Divine Outline. But this project is something that I want to keep doing until my final day. Hopefully, I would like to focus 100% on this, but I don't have the means to do that at the moment. So in any capacity, I want to keep this project going forward. Alright, doctors in Canada intensive care unit stumbled on a very strange case last year when life support was turned off for 4 terminal patients. One of them showed persistent brain activity even after they were declared clinically dead. For more than 10 minutes after doctors confirmed that through a range of observations, including the absence of a pulse and non-reactive pupils, the patient appeared to experience the same kind of brain waves, delta wave bursts, we get during deep sleep. Okay, so something that in the research I find that a lot of the doctors, a lot of the researchers go into the idea of, oh, we don't know what's happening, this is unique, this is one in a lifetime, this is, well, yes, the study of brains dying, we don't have a lot of cases. That it seems that we have 2, including this one, and until 2022, as I said, that article going with the first EEG on a dying human brain was all over the place as the first instance where this has happened. But according to these doctors in Canadian intensive care unit, I have exactly where below, they actually went through a similar process. They had a similar case, and they made a research about it. So maybe that one was not so isolated. I think the difference between these two is that the one from last year, for 2022, was that the EEG was being conducted before, during, and after. Well, this was a procedure that was after. I have it highlighted on the actual research. I'm going to go into it in just a second. But the thing here is that is these delta waves. I've been speaking a lot about delta waves. It's saying here that it's the sense that we get during deep sleep. So there's this whole thing that they used to call dreamless sleep, and I made a video about it. I named it "We Die Every Time We Sleep," because there is this notion, this idea that there is some sort of a silver cord, and when we are where we go during deep sleep is they're saying we're not conscious, we're dreamless, but some research is suggesting that it's just a different type of consciousness. We go into what they are calling a quote-unquote selfless state. And now if you start connecting the dots, when we have this deep sleep and this selfless state and meditation and all of these things, where you go into delta, as I said, the delta waves are connected with these quote-unquote transcendental experiences or transcendental dreams even. Why don't we remember our dreams? So some people do remember them, and some people say that it is during this deep sleep where they have the most incredible experiences, even in their dreams, where they connect with people who have passed and so on and so forth. There's this whole idea in mythology, in themes, in narratives of the dream bridge that somehow, even in the Bardo Total, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that there is this connection between the place of dreams and some of the other dimensions, other places that we can connect at some place. So the very interesting, I'm going to link all that I have on this somewhere on the screen. So I have that I made recently about dreamless sleep. I'm going to link it somewhere. And there is that other study from Christopher Timmerman about in which other occasions, in which other types of experiences do we get these delta waves. Well, during the peak DMT experience, dimethyltryptamine, the strongest psychedelic known to man. And when people go through the breakthrough experience, I made a lot of videos about this as well. When people go through the breakthrough experience and they see that they meet God or angels or aliens, and they feel this extreme bliss and so on, the peak of the experience, what they notice is that people go into these delta waves. But so I'm going to link that somewhere in the screen. As I said, this is a working program, putting everything together. The very interesting thing about the delta waves is that, well, doctors say when these delta waves are happening, we're not supposed to have a conscious experience. These are the slowest brain waves available to humans. So when this is happening, there is barely any brain activity. We shouldn't have conscious experiences during these delta wave bursts, much less what people are describing as the most transcendental experiences, the most emotional experiences of meeting entities or whatever during this experience. So if the brain is turned off, this also happens in newborns. Newborns are in this delta state for the first year of their lives. And I read an article, I'm going to feature this article in the future, where the doctor is saying, we're trying to figure out why babies are not having brain strokes and are able to just survive during this delta wave state, because this is not something where we should be having conscious. So if there's no brain activity, not high enough brain activity to be fully conscious, where are these conscious experiences happening? My argument is that there is the possibility that these experiences are happening somewhere else, and then you tie into the brain filter theory, which suggests that the brain is a filter of our reality, is not the seat of consciousness. So if whatever activity, energy, whatever you want to call it, prana, ki, call it whatever you want, it detaches from the brain, and so the activity is much slower. Whatever it is that is consciousness is not in the brain, and it's going somewhere, having experiences. And this is why our memory is so sketchy about it. Sometimes people remember, sometimes people don't. This is why dreams come in pieces, because it seems to be that whatever conscious experience is happening, it perhaps is not happening in the brain. So where is happening? So we're leading into the possibility with the NDEs and everything else about non-corporeal consciousness. So that's a whole nother thing. So this is the importance of delta wave. It's the main thing here. All right, so the article continues. In one patient, single delta wave bursts persisted following the cessation of both the cardiac rhythm and arterial blood pressure, ABP. The team from the University of Western Ontario in Canada reported in March 2017. That could be a unique experience for each individual. So this was a test of 4 people, and only one of them had these delta brainwaves happening. So the other 3, they simply didn't have any brain activity at the moment of death. So what is this difference? I'm going to go into it in just a second. So as it goes forward, it's saying the researchers are being very cautious about the implications, saying it's far too early to be talking about what this could mean for our post-death experience, especially considering their sample size is 1. Okay, this was in 2017, but now in 2022, we have that other, which was supposed to be the first EEG recorded on a dying human brain, but it's actually, so we have 2 of them, and there's a lot of there's been a lot of research in animals as well. And as I said, if you go into the delta, the studies on delta, we have all this research that I'm talking about and featuring regarding dreamless sleep, regarding Christopher Timmerman, the peak DMT experience. This was not around in 2017. All this research that I've been featuring, a lot of the research that I've been featuring in this channel has been in the past 5 years. So we're just opening to all of these things. So they're saying it's too early and we have to be cautious about the implications. Okay, that's fair from a scientific standpoint. But when we start going into this, let's call it the subjective, which is not really subjective because there is a lot of research on near-death experiences as well. Actually, in 2022, in 2017, yes, perhaps. In 2022, we had the first scientific consensus statement for the future research of near-death experiences. I made a video about it. I'm going to link it somewhere in the screen. So this is no longer subjective. This is no longer purely anecdotal. There is solid research going on about this, and the phenomenon is in the quote-unquote, according to this scientific consensus statement, in the hundreds of millions of reports saying the same thing. So now a lot of people who have done some research on near-death experiences, they know more or less what is included in these experiences. And something that happens in a lot of the near-death experiences is that the experiences get to a point where they meet a threshold, whether they are about to cross a tunnel, about to go through a door, about to cross a river, about to do something that is some sort of and this is very interesting, the fact that they're having a whole subjective experience where they're meeting their family, or they are in a quote-unquote heavenly realm, or you name it. There's differences. There are cosmic experiences, there are semi-religious experiences, there's all of it within it. It seems that we are tapping into the realm of imagination, but not simple hallucination, because these experiences are not correlated with hallucinations. They have a theme, they have a very specific patterns that keep reoccurring. So they go to a point where they are at a threshold, where they are given the choice by their family members or by non-human intelligences that they meet, or beings of light, or whatever you may call it, or sometimes they say God himself or herself or itself, because they say that it's just a light. And they are told, they sometimes just know that there is a threshold that if they go through it, that's it, they're done. They're going into heaven, or they're going into the next life, or they're going into something else, and they're letting go of their entire previous life. So there is this threshold thing. And then if you go into the mythology and ancient philosophies, the idea of letting go at the moment of the idea of letting go of the ego, and so on and so forth. So we could be having this experience where at the physiological level, some experiences could be having this brain activity, this delta wave aspect of the physiological part of the experience, where whatever it is, the brain activity, the intelligence, as I said, call it soul, call it prana, call it quantum information, call it activity, call it electricity, whatever you want to name it, is still active in the brain. And as I mentioned, there is a whole process going on after that. The information of the genes are acting up, and as it seems, there is brain activity sometimes. So some people say that at the moment of death, they go straight into a different place. They sort of wake up. For some people, there is a transition. There is some sort of a tunnel, some sort of going through a path, or some sort of a transition. And I think at the physiological level, we see these delta brainwaves when there is this transition. As it says here, that could be a unique experience for each individual. I know that I've heard Peter Fenwick talking about how it is easier for people when they let go of their ego, when they go into the experience. Even in the DMT circles, they say let go, surrender yourself to the experience, and it'll be easier. If you resist, going to be harder. So it seems to be this detachment. Am I saying that this is only a physiological aspect of the brain? No, I am not. I oftentimes get very people misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying that it's not only a metaphysical aspect of this huge mystery, this huge phenomenon that we are facing head on, that our generation is going to start facing with the undeniable truth of near-death experiences and all these things that we're finding through science as well. But we have to start to understand it and understand that it's not only this metaphysical process, but it could be also a physiological process, and seeing the connections between the two could help us understand the phenomenon better. So it's not too early to be talking about, maybe in 2017, but in 2023, it's not too early. We have the research on either experience and all of these things. All of it is linked below, and I have, I don't know how many videos on this playlist already. Okay, so the article moves forward. In the absence of any biological explanation of how brain activity could possibly continue several minutes after the heart has stopped beating, the researchers said that the scan could be the result of some kind of error at the time of recording. Of course, it is because of an error in the system. There's no way that this could be happening. We cannot look into the phenomenon objectively. We have to come up with an excuse. So no signs of malfunction. There was no malfunction in the apparatus that they were using to record the EEG. It's difficult to posit a physiological basis for this EEG activity, given that it occurs after a prolonged loss of circulation, the researchers wrote. So this is something that I found very interesting here. So after a prolonged loss, so this is 30 minutes, all the way up to 30 minutes after clinical death. After clinical death, 30 minutes, the brain was still going with some sort of activity. So it's difficult to posit a physiological basis. Well, the physiological basis, no, but do we have, let's call it I'm just going to go with metaphysical. Let's call it a metaphysical basis for this activity. Yes, we have hundreds and millions of stories of near-death experiences where people reach this threshold that I just spoke about after a prolonged loss of circulation. So here is something that I'm pondering, that I'm going to ask. What is it that causes life? What is it that causes this energy still being attached in the brain? Is it the circulation? Is it because breathing and circulation, is this what causes life? Is this the creator of quote-unquote life? What makes it so that past this initial period of transition into death, of course, if a body is dead for 30 days, then it's going to start to decompose. What exactly is it that keeps a body alive for, let's say, 50, 60, 70, 100 years? And at the moment of death, 30 days after, it's gone. Is it the circulation? Is it the breathing? Or is it something else? Is it some sort of an energy that we're starting to figure out, that was called ether, ki, prana in the past? What exactly is it? Is it electrical energy? Is it something else? Is it this brain activity? What exactly is it that brings life? The life force, to say the least. So on this aspect, where there was the prolonged loss of circulation, there was still this electricity, this energy, this activity, likely the attachment of some sort of consciousness. Let's call it this selfless consciousness, because also this happens in the experiences where people report whatever they are in this cloud of information that they become. They look at their bodies and they feel rejection to that. Sometimes they don't even remember that they were those bodies. They don't see themselves as this body. So there is a selflessness aspect of it. They don't understand that they are those bodies. They become something else. It's a process of heightened consciousness, as it is suggested. So what is it that causes life? Is it an energy? Is it something else? I don't know what to call it. Or is it the material aspects of breathing, articulation, so on and so forth? We're seeing where materialism and something else, let's call it, are starting to detach from each other and are starting to find this conflict. The science is bringing the conflict because we're looking at the facts here. So this waveform bursts could therefore be artifactual human error in nature, although an artifactual source could not be identified. Of course, this is the regular excuse that materialists, that scientists are going to come forward. We're not wrong. We're not wrong in our understanding as scientists and as materialists. It is nature that is wrong because it's causing a phenomenon that we do not understand. Hence, nature must be wrong. Do you understand how illogical this is at face value? It's so illogical. So the process of genes, the fact that you come into this body, into a system, into a planetary system, into a universe that's already formed. You didn't make your body, you didn't make the universe, you didn't make the cycles, you didn't make the animals, you didn't design anything about the world that you inhabit. Everything is caused by, let's call it, quote unquote, a nature, information, some sort of structure, some sort of intelligent design that does not need a God of the Bible, as I've been speaking so far. But somehow you, as an individual ego that comes into the an already formed universe, are gonna call the universe. There's got to be an error, a mistake in the universe, because this ego, the scientific materialist ego, do not understand the larger scheme, the larger intelligence that is machinating all of these things that I don't understand. This is so illogical at face value, but this is what they're bringing forward. So of course, this is research. This is what I'm talking about. Is research. So it's right here. It's gonna be linked below as usual. Electroencephalographic recordings during withdrawal of life-sustaining therapy until 30 minutes after declaration of death. Alright, so the article goes forward. The research also investigated a phenomenon known as quote-unquote death waves occurred in the patient. In 2011, a separate team observed a burst brain activity in rat brains about 1 full minute after decapitation. So the brain and the heart have different moments of expiration. So they done this research in 2011. I'm just gonna feature it as well, but this is a pretty simple research. It seems that the massive wave, which can be recorded approximately 1 minute after decapitation, reflects the ultimate border between life and death. Researchers from the Radboud University in the Netherlands reported at the time. So here it is. So this is kind of a grim experiment, but I mean, I guess it's science. So at this moment, group of rats, they are suddenly decapitated, and it goes with the idea of what happens if the death is sudden. What happens if someone just dies? Is there no process? Is there no anything? Is that when people have traumatic experiences, what happens in their experiences is that they report that they exit their body. They're somehow connected to the body, or they say that they are having both experiences at the same time. They say that let's say they're gonna have a car crash, so they exit their body before the car crash, before it happened. And they see the car crash and they experience it through their body, but they also experience it outside their body without pain, from a different perspective. Sometimes they just experience the perspective outside. It's very interesting. This phenomenon is very interesting, and it repeats over and over and over. It's like a mechanism, natural mechanism of, let's call it the soul or whatever it is. We're not sure what we're looking at. I have to make that sure. If anything we can bring out of all of this research that I've been featuring and their experience and everything, is that we're looking at a massive mystery and we're facing very interesting things, and we have to look at it at face value. So what's happening here is that they are decapitated, these rats, and then 1 minute after they have this death wave right here. So there's a little bit of activity, and then boom, there's something going on. So what they were seeing, that there's a different disconnection between the brain and how the body dies, and so on and so forth. What I think, the way that I look at it is, it seems that we are information. It seems that there is information in the brain. So at the moment of death, there needs to be some sort of an upload, especially if we go with the idea of the Orquart theory that all these quantum information and microtubules at the moment of death, they go somewhere else. There is a little bit of a process happening here. The quantum information within the brain goes into a larger, let's call it field. Let's call it field of whatever, consciousness or whatever. It goes outside. So there's a process where this brain activity just escapes. Let's say it escapes the brain, and I made that video on magnetoencephalography where, we have technology proving that our thoughts, our brain activity, it is not only in our skull, it taps into the electromagnetic field outside of us, and I made a whole video about it. I'm going to link it somewhere in the screen. So this is a proven thing. This is a real thing. Whatever is happening in our brain activity is connected outside our skull. It seems that we are connected to this larger grid of things. And at the moment of death, when it's sudden, like in this decapitation, there is a little bit of a process to something happening. When the Canadian team looked for this phenomenon in their human patients, they came up empty. There's no way to justify this. So the article keeps going forward. This incredible niche field of neuroscience where no one really knows what's actually going on. So this is, as I've been saying, in quantum physics, in all of these scientific reports and everything, the answer of science is we don't know. Or there's a mistake in nature. Nature is wrong and we are right. Nature is wrong and we are right and we don't understand it. We don't know. This is why you have to look at the whole thing holistically. When you look at the whole thing holistically, then you put all the information, ancient philosophies, as I've been doing in this channel, and all of the research from altered states of consciousness and so on and so forth, and then you can start to get a better picture of what's actually going on. But if you're a materialist who is only closed into what science is saying, and you just regurgitate whatever they've told you for years from a materialist standpoint, for a very isolated standpoint, you're not going to understand anything. This is no different than when Christians in the Middle Ages were told that maybe there were other forms of living or other ideas or other things besides what was written from a book written out of Abrahamic traditions. There's something else, but if you don't look to this something else holistically, you're going to be trapped into your little dogma. So the article keeps going on into these studies on how the genes also at the moment of death, and it wasn't like they were taking it longer than everything else to sputter out, to say something to sputter out. Like the genes kept on being active. They actually increased their activity following the moment of clinical death. 1,000 genes were still functioning several days after death in human cadavers. I made a whole video about this. As I said, I tied it to the idea of the transmutation of the soul and metempsychosis. I'm going to link it somewhere in the screen. There seems to be a process happening at the moment of death. The big takeaway from the studies like this isn't that we understand more about the post-death experience now that we did before, because the observations remain inconclusive and without biological explanation. Well, this is this little materialist point of view. Yes, you don't know anything and you're not understanding anything because you're just so closed off that you're not willing to accept that there's something else. But what they do show is that we got so much to figure out when it comes to the process of death, how we are not actually experienced. The research was published in the Canadian Journal of Neurological Sciences. So this is 2015. This is 5 years ago. I mean, yes, there has been some research from 2017 to 5 years ago. However, the research on near-death experiences, on altered states of consciousness, on ancient philosophies, and all of these things on the paranormal, the research from Dean Radin has been going on for a long time. Jose Silva and his mind, his delta waves research, and so on and so forth. There's been so much. Robert Monroe goes back to the 90s, to the 80s. There's so much research, so much information out there, but if people are stuck on the materialist outlook, they're gonna find that they're not getting anywhere, and they're gonna write these types of articles where they're saying that we don't know anything before because there's no biological explanation. Let's say that there's something more than biological, then everything changes. This is mentality that is stuck into one point of view where nothing is happening. And so this is what some people are suggesting, and even scientists, a lot of scientists like Rupert Sheldrake are suggesting we need to look at the phenomenon from a holistical point of view. Otherwise, we're stuck on a modern dogma. If you are on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A rational divine outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.